Welcome everybody. I'm supremely excited that you're here at the Voice Game panel at the Voice Conference, Voice Summit today. This is the panel about voice games. Supremely excited about it. Extremely delighted to have these 5 panelists here, giving a short introduction of each of them, and then we'll get to the action of them demoing their skills live. Right here. Doesn't that sound exciting? Woo! Yes, yes. Any one of you getting nervous already? All right. Let's start off with it's all in alphabetical order. So the first one in this regard is Adva, Levin, flew all the way here from Tel Aviv in Israel. Great to have you here. Adva is the CEO and founder of her own studio, Pretzel Labs, Pretzel Voice Labs. This has got international voice fame for winning the Kids Skill Challenge with Kids Court. And she has a couple of other cool skills that I hope she will not demo right here, otherwise we'll all have to be freeze dancing live here. So let's actually get to the action of, why is it taking? Of demoing. Who's ready for that?
Not me.
I'm sorry. All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Alexa, open Kids Court.
Welcome to Kids Court. If your siblings, friends, or parents have been naughty to you, we're gonna hold a trial and get our revenge. Just kidding. We'll get to the bottom of things. Now, take a moment to think about who you'd like to prosecute. Let's start. All rise for the Honorable Judge Lexi.
Hello there, naughty kids.
Think you guys should rise?
We're here about previous trials.
Settle a case?
Prosecutor, please tell the court what happened.
Florian is making me do this demo.
Oof. Is the defendant present or absent?
Present.
You're in trouble. What do you plead? Say guilty if you did it, or not guilty if you didn't.
Guilty?
Bada bing, bada boom. This is self-incrimination. My verdict is. I find the defendant guilty. Your sentence is, try to stand on your hands. My verdict is effective immediately. Execute your sentence while the music plays.
Oh, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Adva. Should I do that?
Alexa, stop.
Yeah.
I will hold you in contempt, by the way, for not doing that. Alexa, stop.
All right, party time now.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. That was really exciting. Everybody knows now what Kids Court is about. Some of you might be asking, is this a game? Is this a voice game? I thought about that beforehand and was just about to disinvite Adva from the panel. But if you've been on the Lego panel, like yesterday you've learned that games is about dragging the imaginary to the real world, right? Or kind of in words that I would use, games are about simulating real-world situation without real-world stakes, right? So you have the courtroom situation, you can play through it, but you don't actually go to jail for making people demoing live on stage. So I think this really qualifies as a game. Yeah, cool, you're here. Awesome. Next speaker in alphabetical order is Jess Williams. Yes, 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 give her applause. She flew all the way here from London. It's also awesome. Jess and Oscar Mary have an, can I call it agency, a studio called Operlo, and they are also have been finalists of the Kids Skill Challenge in last year. I think you won the prize for the best Echo Show skill.
Echo Show
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, with Panda Rescue. And I'm also going to let you display your skill. in 1 minute? One of those, all those amazing skills that you have here. You can just take your pick.
We'll play Guess My Name. We'll do a 2-player game.
Wow,
So
nice.
let's play. Or does anyone from the audience want to play? Alexa, open Guess My Name.
Let's play the game, where you guess my name. I'll give you a series of 3 clues, and you need to guess who I am as quickly as you can. At any point in the game, a player can shout, "Alexa," then the answer. For example, you might shout, "Alexa, you're a Barack Obama." The quicker you guess, the more points you get. Up to 4 players or teams can play. Okay, laptops down and phones away. Let's begin. How many people are playing?
2.
Okay, starting 2-player game. The category of the day is random. Would you like to play random or hear the full list?
Play random.
The categories are animals, random,
Alexa.
historical figures.
Play animals.
The categories are animated.
Classic. I think it's a British accent.
Yeah, true.
Alexa, play the animals category.
The categories are animated characters.
Guilty of doing live demos on stage.
I know.
I think I still have to do that handstand at some point.
Or world countries.
Alexa,
Like.
stop. I can't keep this going on any longer. It's too embarrassing.
Yeah. But it was a great intro.
Thanks.
Stop. The categories are. All right, cool. Awesome speakers, right? And we have even more of them. There's also John Myers of Earplay, whom I'm also supremely excited to have on this panel. John Myers is a CEO of Earplay. One of the big guys. What are you? Are you CEO? Yeah. Cool. Earplay is behind great interactive story skills, of which Mr. Robot is one of my absolute favorites. If you enjoyed the show and haven't tried the skill, you should definitely play it. Their newest creation is Jurassic World X Revealed. Right, which also implements in-skill purchases, really interesting. I think we'll have some questions on the panel about that at some point. And John will also display his skill now. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, so I'm going to show sort of the original one we did, which is an attempt to do an interactive radio drama. We started this way back in 2013. Actually, there's kind of a debate on whether this is a game. Maybe you guys can help us figure that out. Alexa, open Codename Cygnus and start over.
Are you sure you want to start over and delete your current bookmark?
Alexa,
You can
delete.
bookmark deleted. Starting your story over from the beginning.
Is your earpiece working properly, Agent? I believe we lost you for a moment. Don't disturb your cover at the card table, but please acknowledge that you can hear me. Request 2 cards this turn. Say 2 cards.
2 cards.
You are good, friend, but not good enough for the likes of Vasi Markovich Krasnov.
Monsieur Krasnov raises 50,000.
This is too much for me.
Armano Tomasi folds. Excusez-moi, it is your turn, Parker. Are you in or out?
I see no point in you folding with a full house, aces high. You could lure him in by calling the bet, or try to force him out by raising. Do you want to call or raise?
Raise.
Jordan Parker sees 50,000 and raises another 50,000. Back to Monsieur Krasnov.
Governor!
Monsieur Krasnov folds.
Very well done, Agent. Perhaps you should compound
Sorry,
your win
this
with a
device
flirtatious
lost its
joke to a
connection.
stablemate. There's the German player to your left,
Magic.
Lizette Schaefer. If you prefer to flirt with a gentleman, Mr. Armano Tomasi is the Italian to your right. Will it be lady or gentleman?
Gentlemen.
How adorable. I can only imagine your passion for
I think the minute's over.
as you...
Exit. All right, there we go.
Thank you so much, John. I could spend the entire hour like this. Do you also enjoy it? So, next one we have is the amazing Nick Schwab. He's from Invoked Apps, one of the pioneers in building Alexa apps. He's most well known for his army of ambient noise sounds.
Yep.
But he also made at least one amazing game, which is the unofficial Deal or No Deal game.
Correct.
And we're looking forward to hearing some of that now.
All right, I'm going to ask for some help from the panelists here to pick some case numbers for me. All right. Alexa, open Deal or No Deal.
Welcome to Deal or No Deal. A row of closed cases rest in front of you, numbered 1 through 20, each containing an amount of money, as little as a penny, and as much as $1 million. Which of the 20 cases do you think has $1 million in it?
8.
All right, case 8 is yours. Hope it's a good one. Now a round of opening cases begins. Try to open the cases containing the smallest amounts of money to improve the odds of your case holding $1 million. Only 5 cases to open this round. What case number would you like to open?
2.
$10 gone. 4 more cases to open this round. Which case would you like to open?
7.
$50,000.
Come on.
Only 3 more cases to open until the banker calls. Pick another case.
10.
$100 gone. Only 2 more cases to open until the banker calls. Pick a case number to open.
20.
$500,000. Only 1 more case to open until the banker calls. Pick another case.
1.
$750 eliminated. Yeah. Uh-huh. Sure. There are 15 cases left. Your case might be worth $1 million. The banker is offering to buy it from you for $143. Deal or no deal?
Deal.
Deal. You accepted the banker's offer for $143. Let's see if you made a smart choice. The banker wins. You would have been better off keeping your case worth $1,000. Thanks for playing Deal or No Deal. We hope to see you again soon.
Cool.
That's it.
Thank you. Awesome. It's fun burning money like this, right?
Unfortunately, the money's not real. I wish it was.
What? All right. So, last in alphabetical order is Nicolas Carey from Potato Labs.
Yep.
Potato Labs, exactly.
Potato, just potato.
Just potato.
Yep, just potato.
Thank you. It's a member of the AKQA.
Yeah,
network,
so we're part of AKQA, WPP. We build things. So we're a digital product studio. Our clients range from Google, Activision, which you're going to see in a minute, BBC. We've built some skills such as Jamie Oliver, which is like a recipe skill. So yeah, we work for a variety of different companies.
Mm-hmm. Cool, awesome. And this is a skill that I'm supremely excited about, and which he's here about, is the Ghost 2 companion skill. Oh no, the Destiny 2 Ghost companion skill. Any one of you familiar with Destiny 2? Yeah, some of you. So it's kind of a shooter adventure game, right?
Called a shared world shooter is the technical name. It's made by a company called Bungie, who made a game called Halo. Quite relevant in the whole voice space because if you know Halo, you'd also know Cortana, who's now a voice assistant for Microsoft. So Ghost is a character in Destiny 2. It's an AI that helps you through the game.
All right, would you mind demoing that now?
Yeah, I've just got the PlayStation in my bag, so if you guys don't mind that, check it.
Yeah, just give us half an hour to set that up. No, in fact, I prepared a YouTube video, YouTube to the rescue, where we'll see that skill live in action. Can you hear that?
Alexa, ask Ghost to save this as my strike loadout. I've saved this as your strike weapon loadout. I like your thinking. Alexa, ask Ghost to equip my Crucible loadout. Crucible loadout equipped, Guardian. I'd hate to be on the receiving end of these. Alexa, ask Ghost to transfer my best rocket launcher. Now this won't make a mess. Eyes up, Guardian.
Nice, right? I wish we had a live demo of that, right? Okay. No? What is that?
Impressing UK is the easiest thing I'll do.
Oh no, I lost it. My presentation is all gone. All right, why don't you... I'm starting that back up. Shouldn't be all too hard. No, you're seeing all my secrets. Let's no pictures. At least you don't see the password down there. All right, panel's over. Thank you all for attending. Please leave now. Nothing to see here. All right, until I start up the presentation again, let's start off with the first question. Which is about one very obvious thing if you paid attention to. In all of the introduction slides that I showed, everything we've ever been talking about were Alexa skills, right? Seeing Mandy sitting here, I think is paining you in your heart. So I'd like to ask the question, why, about Google Assistant as a platform for voice games. And I know that some of you, that being John, already has published well, at least one of his games for Google Assistant. So I'd be curious to hear about what your experience with that are like.
Yeah, I think, well, we're in a little bit of a unique position because we had built our system, our engine, and what we used to run things before Alexa and Google Assistant came along, and so we used them more as like a place where we deploy. So we were able to kind of go cross-platform at the earliest stage. We have both, the one you saw, codenamed Cygnus, is on both platforms, as well as our EarPlay hub skill, which has our demo and some other small stuff. And I think the major difference is predominantly in the adoption and awareness of third-party skills. I think that Alexa is putting a lot of time and energy into making sure that people are aware of these things. They're running promotions, doing a lot of brand work, that kind of stuff. We're not kind of seeing that at the same on the Google side. So the numbers are definitely way higher over there. I think that Google has a really nice system in Dialogflow that is fantastic. I think their ASR is amazing, and I think that like technically it's kind of awesome. And I think that they're adding features that are much more technically focused. For example, you can do, and we're very interested in this, we haven't applied it yet, but you can do multi-track now. You can have a background and a foreground track. For us doing audio, that's like amazing. And with Alexa, you only have the one. So there's lots of gives and takes, but I think the primary determining factor for a lot of people that are involved right now, which is the attempt to maybe get rewards, which is very nice on Alexa, and also have a lot of users, so you're building your fan base.
All right. Then if someone else likes to answer the questions of how high is it in your priorities list of the things you like to do, or transporting your skills to Google Assistant, Nicolas? Or,
well, I'd actually take the question a slightly different route, which is, distribution is one part of it, right? So we're all talking about distribution, which is, let's look at the big voice assistants, so Google, Alexa. Actually, I like to think about it slightly differently, which is thinking more about voice and how voice fits into technology. So where my focus is a bit more is on where's the ways in which voice can be embedded into experiences. So actually where the big opportunities are for games is VR and AR. So not Google Assistant and not Alexa. And that's where, if you speak to any person working in VR, they're crying out for voice designers and voice engineering to come into it, because if you try to play a VR experience, the way in which you control VR experiences is so bad. Like, it's like playing on a Wii without being able to see like your hands, and it's waving around these controllers. And actually, if you want to immerse yourself into a VR experience, what better way to do it than voice? So.
I completely agree with you, but I will disagree on the fact that there's more of an opportunity there right now, because I think like the opportunity right now is now that there's monetization and there's kind of a growing tide of a chance to do things, and it's definitely a commercialized platform, Alexa, Google. The thing about VR, AR, because we experiment with that. Like I used to work with Alchemy Labs, they're the ones that are required by Google, and we did jams and all that stuff. We actually built like a kind of early version of the holodeck, but that was like 3 years ago, and I've watched like so many companies crash on the rocks of VR. And it's that thing they keep saying keeps coming next year. I think that if you're building branded experiences, then yeah, you can be successful on both platforms, but you're going to get more money out of AR or VR because it's much more expensive and people are willing to throw a lot more money at it. I think as a commercial platform, Alexa's a little further along though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, and it comes back to context, right?
Yeah.
That's the big thing, is what context are you building for? Which are your clients or your products or your ideas?
And I will say you're absolutely dead on about voice being a much smoother and better voice interface for visual media like that. And I think that has a lot to do with why there's a lot of multimodal pushes right now that like simply hands-free, eyes-free is awesome, but people are wanting cross-media experiences or multimodal, yeah.
Oh, these are some awesome keywords already. I was going to talk about context as well, because it is something that keeps popping up a lot here, or that I've heard about before, that the question, where are customers or users' expectations towards voice games? The most successful category of voice games, I've made a breakdown here of the most successful voice games in the US store. Here in this category thing, you see the ones that are marked with a checkbox are trivia and quiz games. Those with book are interactive story games. Well, Yes Sire kind of sticks out as the only kind of management simulation game. And wanted to ask a question of you, to you. What do you think about this hypothesis that games for voice assistant platforms need to be first and foremost casual? So maybe Jess, if you want to go into that.
Yeah, I definitely think, because I mean, Alexa's not a necessary device yet. I think in the household for a lot of people it is a casual device and it's fun to play with. And I see people playing the games when, you know, maybe like a TV ad is on, you've got some minutes, or you're waiting for dinner to be ready if like there's family of kids, or maybe you're just waking up in the morning and as you're kind of getting ready, there's like a short game that you can play. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think it's in like those pockets of someone's day that people should be aiming to play games for. I think in terms of kids, so for Panda Rescue, we thought, you know, like parents want to take their children away from iPads and screens. So I think it's really great to have like a longer story and interactive experience. And, you know, kids could, although some people argue they have shorter attention span, but also you can make it more exciting by having like stories that go on and sound effects, etc.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's take that with the kids thing a bit further. Adva, you've also targeting mostly towards kids with your skills. And you also tailor for very specific contexts, right? So you're not like Kids Court, for example, is not the kind of game. It's like, oh, we have 5 more minutes until dinner. Let's just prosecute someone.
That depends on how good dinner is, I guess.
Yes, I guess you're right. So how does that work for you? Like building a skill for a very specific and very narrow use case?
I don't know if I would say it is narrow, because yes, it handles, you know, a specific case of kids or parents fighting, but that is a very broad and frequent scene in the household. I've actually been surprised that I've seen users play it continuously for an hour. Yeah. So it is designed like as a 5-minute game, get one trial done, but people are using it a lot more. And as far as like the attention span and how they are using it, so in a way we are like designing these things, for one quick interaction, I would say, and focus on something. But I've just been surprised, like both by the usage and when I do like testing on groups of kids, that they are very concentrated.
Yeah.
And I think it's most of my games are for more than one player, and they come in, they go. There is like a lot of movement going on around it.
Yeah. I think this is also the kind of hook cycle, right? Where you just get into the game and start like let's do something casual, like Candy Crush, and then you got stuck, and then you find yourself having played it for an hour. I think that's if you got to that point, this is kind of where you want to be in designing games. Like yeah.
Yeah, I think games should be very flexible in their duration. Games like Deal or No Deal, there's a clear end to that game, so it's more likely that a user will play it from start to finish in one session. But games like what Your Play does, and the more continuous games where there really might not be a definitive end, or the end might be hours and hours away potentially, right? It's important to be able to start that game and stop it at any time and then pick it up later. Yeah. So building memory into your games is very, very important. And in the home, I would say that Alexa is probably the winner right now. But think about it in transportation too. Resuming your game in the car. Google at I/O announced that assistant's coming into the car with Android Automotive or Android Auto. And I'm sure Apple's going to do the same with CarPlay, right? And Siri. Yeah. Like just the dynamic of the voice landscape is going to be voice everywhere and anywhere. Mm-hmm. So being able to resume your game, regardless of the platform, even having account linking, that way you can resume your game in multiple platforms, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is there's going to be more complex features that sort of evolve over time. Right now, there's sort of a rudimentary notion we can all kind of build in, like you're saying, a memory function, a resume function, a save game function. But that becomes very complex when it comes to voice, because we're used to, in games, being able to look at all the different saves. But it's hard to import. It's hard to have multiple saves in a game. So there's still a lot of problems to solve. But all in all, it's like we're kind of catching up and figuring out how does this sort of a thing that happens in games that we're normally dealing with, how do we translate that over into a brand new medium? And it's still very, very early.
The voice everywhere thing is really interesting for video games especially. So some of the best characters that we've made in the last 10 years have come from video games. You just need to see how many have been borrowed into films, like Lara Croft, etc. So to be able to have an engagement with one of these characters at any time you want in your home, not needing to turn the console on or drop in, that's really interesting. Like, that really excites people. If you look at why people love video games, why it's such a big industry, is it gives that opportunity of storytelling and immersion into these new worlds. And one of the beautiful things about voice assistants plus video games is they let you go into, they're a bit of a sandbox where we want voice to go. Because with video games with an API, you can then know what somebody did, where they've been, all of these kind of really interesting facts about someone's play. And then being able to then build these deeply personalized models, which are a bit about how like we imagine voice going in the future, right? It knows you've been to the dentist yesterday or whatever. So then you can build these recommendation engines where you say, hey, we can improve how you play your game. We can tell you where you went yesterday and what you should play today. And that level of new content that we can provide to gaming is such an interesting opportunity.
Cool. Let's dive into that multimodal voice everywhere keyword, because this is something that's also really interesting, and where some very interesting things have happened in the past. I've tried to kind of as a starter for the conversation. I've broken things down by how much of the game is actually based on voice. You can't probably see it very well, can you?
You can see it.
But it's basically ordered different voice games by the amount of the game that is in the voice modality. So on the top there are games that have no other component beside the voice thing. Then there are some that have voice that have a screen output, like Panda Rescue, for example, or Jurassic World Revealed. For example, Jurassic World Revealed, you get kind of like an image cover of the current chapter, but you cannot interact or touch it, or if you do, it kind of breaks the experiences. Then there are others where you can use display as an input modality, or you have any other input modality like echo buttons or the screen, like with deal or no deal, you have the list template and you can choose which box to use, which I think, for example, makes this game experience more understandable because you already see which boxes have already ticked off and which ones are still open. Then there's a kind of different category of voice-enabled games like the When in Rome game, which is like has a physical component and is kind of a own game, but it only works if you enable it with voice. And then down there, this is an exciting thing of games that work on their own, but can have a voice assistant or can be made easier by using voice. And I'm curious to hear your opinions about where is there a particular sweet spot somewhere in that spectrum, or where are you focusing your efforts for? Is multimodal something that's at this point mature and good to work with? Jess?
Yeah, I think we definitely start designing for a voice-first experience, and that's certainly the way that kind of Amazon market it, is voice-first experience with complementary screens for people that have it. So you should always design your game on the assumption that people don't have any screens to look at as well. So you can play the whole of Panda Rescue and not need to look at a screen. But I definitely think the platform, I can only speak from the Alexa perspective, but it's still very early, and it's actually quite hard to design the visual element because it's very basic at the moment. And so there's things like you can, after a user says a prompt, or we ask a user for a prompt and they give an answer, only then can you change the screen. So then, if in Guess My Name, for example, you would say, oh, incorrect answer, and then move on to the next clue. I know we didn't actually get there in the demo. The screen can't change, so there's it's quite, so then people are still looking at the incorrect answer even though we've moved on in the game. Mm-hmm. So it is quite hard to do that at the moment, but I definitely see that evolving, especially with Amazon releasing Alexa in the Amazon Alexa app. Being able to actually speak to Alexa through the app. I imagine in the future they'll have a mobile screen ability there. But yeah, it's definitely really challenging designing for voice and then also thinking about the visuals for it. Don't know how anyone else has found it.
So I think a lot of it is dependent on the actual devices, because if you look at the show and the spot, the visuals are just very secondary to voice. I can't imagine someone sitting in front of an Echo Spot and playing a game that is very reliant on visuals. But now that the Fire Cube is out, that, in my opinion, is a visual experience that is powered by voice. So I think a lot of new, interesting experience will be designed for mediums that are, like your video games that are, based on a visual and voice is supporting.
John is sitting on hot coals there.
Yeah, because I have a very strong opinion about this. So as far as voice first, I think that multimodal is number one, like you're saying, it's a very immature, the technology is pretty immature right now and difficult to use, and it's difficult to do really something nuanced with it. But at the same time, the penetration isn't there. It's multimodal is just, it's not something that a large percentage of the people who are using voice are seeing anything. And also, in our experience, and this is specific to what we do, but it also matters. I think part of the magic of why this is working and why this is becoming such a big deal is that people don't have to look at anything, they don't have to touch anything. And we ran an experiment, this is before Alexa even came out, and we took Codename Cygnus and we put it on Android after it was really, really cool on iOS and got some attention. We did a Kickstarter, and our publisher for Android was like, okay, we'll only do this, but we got to add some visual stuff. And we're like, I don't know, like there's a button you can press for the answer. What more do you want than that? And we were talking about doing a script where we would scroll the script as people were saying the lines, as the sound effects were occurring. We're like, all right, we'll do screenplay, scrolling text thing. It's basically the way that Google Assistant kind of works. I told Google Assistant about this too, but everybody hated it. Like, loved it on iOS, hated it. And we were like trying to figure out why, and so we did a lot of testing. And we would ask people, why do you not like it here? Why do you like it here? And what it came down to is they weren't using their imagination when they're looking at something. They're like, well, I'm reading, and I'm like, well, what are you picturing? What do you mean, what am I picturing? But we talked to people that didn't have the scrolling text, and they weren't looking at anything, they weren't touching anything, they were off in their imagination having the times of their life. And so I'm kind of skeptical about it. I think that where we get different is, and again, like I started this, voice, if you're voice first, multimodal is not the best idea. If you're using voice as a supplement to something else first, could be incredible, like we were talking earlier. So, but I want to make that distinction because we're definitely like voice first.
It's about what's It's about what's natural for me. So it's like I've had voice first a lot, and for me, it's all really what's natural. So one of the funny stories from testing with video games is putting Alexa in front of somebody that plays video games. We did some testing with some people that played crazy number of hours of video games, and you put an Alexa device in front of them, and the first week of sessions, we were really just puzzled by people going, Alexa, ask, game I can't mention, to run left, run right. And they're standing with a controller in their hand, and you're thinking, you've used your fingers all this time, why are you asking it to run? Which makes no sense. And it's because almost it put some friction in front of them. And then once kind of they started getting familiar, they started to kind of see where voice would assist. And it's just about finding what's natural, you know, like forcing somebody to speak to Alexa or whatever device in front of them, and rather than using what's natural, doesn't make sense, because it just doesn't make sense to ask your character in the game to run. Like, that takes away the whole fun of exploring and moving and all the different actions you can do with the controller. But if you, and I love always taking like references from like science fiction or whatever, Spider-Man, when they recently released that film, had a really good example where voice works, where he completely changed his costume. Now, for games, that involves going into a menu screen, switching out all these different items, and that's just boring. No one wants to just interrupt their gameplay there and use kind of the controller for that. So it's about finding where's natural, and that's really, for me, where multimodality, and I think a lot of it, as everyone said, is a little bit to do with kind of the immaturity of the platforms that we're working with. Once we start to get to points where we've got great tech that allows you to really combine visual and audio in a great way, we're going to be able to properly stimulate both the eyes and the ears, which is important.
I think at the end of the day, we should be building experiences that are the best for consumers, right? And that includes building visual experiences, multimodal experiences. Think about it at the home. You know, you have Alexa, whatever, you might not have a visual device at home, but if you're using Google Assistant, then you're probably using it on your phone. Like I have an Android phone, I use Google Assistant all the time on my phone, but when I'm at home, I use Alexa. And when I'm at home, I don't rely on the visual experience, I just rely on the audio experience. But since I use my phone with Google Assistant, I really enjoy those visual experiences, the multimodal experiences. And having that expectation across platforms is really important. Having that consistency across platforms is really important. And it's early days right now for multimodal. You know, we have limited templates, limited abilities. But as more and more devices come out, it's been proven that these companies, Google and Amazon, both want multimodal devices. They're pushing it really strong. And that's the future, because it's the most natural way, right? If you're standing in front of your device, you want to be able to touch it. If you're not, you just want to use your voice. Whatever's easiest.
Yeah, cool. Wow, that was a great perspective. Thank you all. There's one topic that's kind of extremely interesting to me. I'm very curious to hear your opinion about it. When I saw Tom Hewitson's talk from the Smart Voice Summit in January, I don't know if you remember that, he said that Jeff Bezos said that voice would be the first killer app. So there would be the case where there would be voice games that would be so compelling and interesting that people would buy the device just to play that game. Kind of similar to like we're talking about the killer app for voice here. Like people keep mentioning that this is a mythical killer app, like the Angry Birds for voice or the Candy Crush for voice. And it seems to me that it's not there yet. I mean, if you're looking at that, Song Quiz seems to be the closest thing to it, but I think this is not it. It does not feel like it. And I'm really curious to hear about all of your opinions about why is that not there? Did we just not explore the space enough, or is the technology not mature enough?
Okay, so yeah, another strong opinion here. Like, I think that with the reason the language is "what's the next killer app" is indicative of a problem that a lot of people that are looking at this field have, which is they're trying to compare it to something, and they're saying, "Oh, this is how mobile worked, so this is how voice is going to work." And I think mobile apps never started as like live. Like web services that are run constantly. You have to constantly update. And you have to keep it up.
Start with a flashlight.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what these are not. I don't consider them apps. I consider them like live web services that you're providing. And so it's an experience much more than it's an app. And the way you break down the design, the way you think about your audience, all of that comes into it. So I think. It's more like you're looking for what's the next World of Warcraft rather than what's the next Angry Birds, and not because it's a non-casual game, but because that's an example of a live service that was run on servers that got tons and tons of people playing that built a following over time. It's not like an app. You can just you can get 1 million downloads. Like suddenly, boom, bam, it's viral. I don't think that's the way this is going to be. I don't think that's how this is going to emerge.
Interesting. Jess, I'd like to hear your opinion a bit about it. Perlo, it's your main business to build voice games, right? And you must be thinking about this question like 10 times a week, right?
Yeah, we don't just build voice games. We do other things as well. But in terms of that like killer app thing, yeah, I mean, I have to agree with what you're saying in terms of like a longer story or a longer experience, but I do think there will be opportunities for like amazing voice games that everyone just downloads, and then like maybe 6 months later there'll be another one. I think the reason, I mean, to some extent there are like certain apps that people all do use on Echo, and I think one of the reasons that it's not there yet, or people haven't bought an Echo to buy a specific skill, for example, is probably just like the platform constraints. Like at the moment, everyone's designing an experience within like a box because of the platform's still evolving and there's certain things you can and can't do. And so as that box expands, there'll be more and more things that we can do. So I definitely think that when you can start like playing live games against each other, for example, like through the device or things like that, or there's like some more interactivity or like social component to it, that will like quickly expand. And I do think there will be opportunity in the future for casual games that like people hear about even if they don't have a voice-enabled device and will buy for them. There'll probably be several. I don't think there'll just be one. But I would say the reason at the moment is the platform constraints, and also people are still learning what you can do and still discovering every time we build a game. We're like, oh, let's do this and like work out a new way of doing something. But the next time we build a game, there'll be something new to take into account. So we have to change the way we're doing. So every time it's like starting from scratch again.
Cool.
Yeah, I think once.
I think we have one. There is one more topic I want to launch, which I think we can have. Yeah, just.
I'll make it quick. I think that once we reach critical mass and we have these assistant devices in the home of every home, then we can have these live experiences, right? These live games. In the meantime, an example that I think everybody should check out is Song Quiz from Volley. They made this gaming experience where it's turn-based, and it makes you think like it's a live experience, but it's actually pre-recorded. You're playing against somebody else's session that already happened. So just think about that in terms of how you can hack the live experience before we reach that critical mass.
Cool. Yeah, good point. There's one thing that I find so interesting that I want to hear your opinions about. which is that thing. I mean, I'm lining up with all the people that are quoting Brad Kinsella here. So have you all seen this chart? It compares the app growth rate versus the skill growth rate in the first 4 years after its launch. And I mean, they're both kind of exponential, but the ones for skills is kind of exponential on a lower scale. And I'm curious to hear your opinion about why that is, and what kind of it would take to start that gold rush that has been in the early app days. Yeah. So, Adva, do you want to start?
I think you already said it in the question. You used the word gold. So, where on that chart was monetization introduced in the App Store? I don't know, but I'm assuming we will see that happening in the voice space when skills have a reliable business model, and that will bring in a lot of big players and people that are looking for the gold rush, basically.
I think it's also about brands, right? If you look through a lot of what those 50,000 are, there's not a huge amount of brands yet doing voice or doing it properly or building proper voice teams inside products. And that's really interesting because it was very easy for brands to adopt apps. You know, it's kind of the starting point. There's already a visual cue. Brands have to figure out what their voice is. And that's a whole new thing for so many brands. And I think that is going to be a real turning point over the next few years. Kind of a lot of talks here talking about kind of how brands can find their voice. And that's going to be really interesting. I also think one other thing, back to the previous question about kind of opportunities as well. One of the things that I think is interesting is AVS. So AVS is allowing you to put Alexa onto physical devices. And AVS, I think, for example, for games will be really interesting because games rely a lot on props. Like a lot of people's favorite games are probably like board games or things where there's a mixture of physical and voice because you're talking. And I'd love to see AVS start to be used for like not building another Alexa speaker that's built by another electronics company, but for a dedicated purpose. Because at that point, you can cut Alexa out. You can build a skill which you can activate as soon as you use the device. And that was also going to cut so much friction.
I think a defining factor in how they both evolved is how the digital good is considered a thing that you own. On an app store, you download, you have an app, it's on your screen, it's like, it's mine, I bought it. And we're already starting to encounter this with the notion of a voice purchase. You can't visualize it. It's content you can move through. It's just, there's a learning curve there. I think that's, again, we're also late to get there in terms of timing, but I think that's part of it too, is that, you know, once someone can buy an app, it caught on a little faster because, you know, it sits there on your home screen, it's mine. And it's easier to convince somebody to make a purchase when that's the case. And so, you know, that I think is quite a big factor. And you know, and again, like you were saying, like once that happens, then people flock to be the companies that are, you know, making those games that are making money.
All right. Adva, you mentioned that in the current, there's not enough gold for there to be a rush. I'm wondering what else would it take? I mean, there is already in-skill purchases available, but would there need to be another model, like in-skill advertising, or what is the component that is missing? I mean, Adva doesn't need to be you. Jess is holding the microphone as well, but you can have tips. I mean,
No, but I think Adva's right. It's just because it was only just released, only in the US, and people using Echo and skills. Like most people that own an Echo don't know what an Alexa skill is, and they just use like the native Alexa things like the weather. And so then, you know, if you release in skill purchases, then they expect content to be free. I think the people that are converting are like the ones that have played an app over and over again. They're like the loyal users. And I think in Jan's talk yesterday, like the top, I don't know what the stat was, but basically most of the top apps are just built by kind of studios so it's built by like 5 or 6 studios, and they tend to be people like doing a startup and like maybe have some funding. But yeah, definitely until like I don't think a brand is going to be investing loads of money in this until they can see return on investment. And even then, like how many people download a mobile app made by like a brand like Unilever? I mean, I don't think that's something. So they're going to have to think like cleverly about how they reach the voice community or the voice users, I guess. Like one thing could be, maybe they like sponsor a game category, for example, and if it's Lonely Planet sponsoring a category, it could be Wonders of the World and things like that. So I think they're going to have to like rethink how they sponsor, because like linear advertising through voice, like the radio, I don't think users will be very receptive to that at all.
That's a really important part there, because the games industry itself is having a bit of an existential crisis of where their next monetization plans are coming from. Mobile, that chart grew with in-game purchases, which are being regulated against in some countries now even. So the games industry itself has had such a kind of interesting turn in the last year. If anyone followed kind of what happened when the Star Wars game came out this year, there was a huge backlash against EA, who's one of the biggest players in the space. And voice is actually an opportunity for a lot of those games companies, in my opinion, because it's at its core a content platform. And one of the problems with games, especially console games, is building more things for console games takes incredible manpower. There's a big team, so a lot of game studios are 600, 700 people to release games on a 1-year cycle. So how do you continue to monetize that? And obviously there's some games that are still doing it really well. Fortnite, if you look at some of their revenue that they've made in this year, is insane. But for voice, there's that opportunity to build content at a really good and scalable way that can really build on the dynamics of a game. So I think there's an opportunity for voice there. I think it's going to take a lot of the game studios, big game studios and publishers to start getting involved. That's one thing that's not there at the moment. So there aren't as many of the big publishers and game studios in voice yet. So for example, Destiny was the first video game skill. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens now monetization is there and what these games companies can do, thinking about where their next monetization will come from.
Skyrim has been really successful, right?
Yep, big time.
Yeah, I look at this graph and I think it's bullshit, to be honest. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, that the 450,000 apps that exist on iOS or Android, how many of them do you actually use, right? Like you might have 20 apps on your phone, 20 out of 450,000. Like the rest don't matter. The rest don't matter. And at the end of the day, when we use a voice app, there might be 1,000 voice apps that do the exact same thing, but the one that does it best is going to win, and that one should get all the traffic because it offers the best user experience.
Yeah.
So the other 10,000 don't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good closing line. We're running out of time, or we already have run out of time. One final thing I think, the kind of thing I should have done first is like, do you all know who I am? I forgot to introduce myself, but maybe you don't care. I'm Florian, by the way, blogging about voice games here at medium.com voice games, working at Jobo. At Jobo we are building a platform where you can build multimodal, not multimodal, more cross-platform voice apps. I've also built voice games. And this has been it. I thank you, all of you. Thank you especially to the panel for being here. This has been an exciting discussion. And wait, are there questions from the audiences? Are there? I mean, I encourage that.
Yep.
Microphone on the way.
Got it, yeah.
I think, Florian, you mentioned that your new skill for Jurassic World has monetization, like upsell in it. So I was wondering, what is behind the paywall, and have you seen people actually paying for it?
Yeah.
And then also, do you see monetization more successful for if there's an IP attached to it, like Jurassic World, as opposed to if you're just like an independent developer putting monetization in your skill?
Okay, so I have to be careful about that because I'm under NDA and I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to disclose things, part of working with IPs and stuff like that. We did Ultimate History Quiz, which was one of the first quizzes that launched in November, and we kind of watched how that went and did the human voice quiz. And we also did, for that one, the idea was that there's daily free content, and then you can upsell 2 packs. For Jurassic World Revealed, what we did is we wanted to have a large, full, kind of like hour and a half experience. And we felt the best way to monetize that would be kind of like what we did with Codename Cygnus, which was successful on iOS, that you get a first bit, like a prologue, like a first chapter free, and you hit a paywall that says, okay, if you'd like to continue, this is how much it's going to be for the next 5 chapters. And I can't say, stats or anything, but what we're seeing we're seeing really high engagement, and we're seeing people who really like it and have a lot of good stuff to say. We've seen things happening that we hadn't seen before with games. For example, people who do a Let's Play with like 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, where they play the skill as a part of the stream. We saw a Game Informer podcast play through it in a 2-part series. So that, I think the notion of the IP having more value and maybe attracting more dollars is the fact that they have a fan base. People who are already just naturally going to everything that comes out about Jurassic World, people are going to want to try and check it out. And so that helps at the launch of a skill that people are coming in the door and checking it out. So I can say that.
Thank you.
I can expand on that note too, because it's not necessarily games, but I build first-party skills, right? Like my own ideas. And with ambient sounds, I introduced ISPs about 3 weeks ago, and the conversion rate from a trial to paid is 90%. So, take that as you will.
Trial. Could you describe that?
Yeah, so I offer a 14-day free trial. So a user will hear an upsell message saying, hey, if you buy premium for $199 a month, you get this, this, and this advanced functionality. Would you like to start your 14-day free trial? And then after which will be $199 a month. And they say, yeah. So then their free trial starts for 14 days. 14 days later, if they haven't canceled, they get charged $1.99. So 90% of people don't cancel within the trial period.
That makes sense. So it's kind of like the HBO or the Showtime, the stuff you see on Fire TV.
Exactly.
Like get the app for a bit. Yeah, it's a subscription model, right?
Yeah. And it goes to the point of the whole stickiness, like making your skill sticky, making your ISP sticky. Like you want to get that user hooked on the functionality and then keep them there.
Cool. One more question from Carey.
Yeah, quick question to Nick. How is that percentage looking like on the total base?
On the total base, I don't have that number offhand. If I had to ballpark it, I would guess it's somewhere around 1% to 2%. But again, it's only been 3 weeks since I introduced it, so I haven't even played with the upsell messaging yet. It's my first trial.
Yeah. And just to give context, in the app world or in any sort of a free-to-play situation, 1% to 2% is normal or good. Actually, like that seems like low when you first hear that, but that is what free-to-play conversion percentages are. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Great wrap up. Thanks again. Thanks all of you for attending. And now, enjoy your lunch, I guess.